Hello and welcome back to Galactic. Today I'm doing a bit of a different video. So, the premise of this video, so I have this ship here. This is the Fortitude. I made this, I don't know how many years exactly, but this was like pre-Factorum, automatons. You can see here, actually I'll say that for a bit. So the idea is this ship is incredibly old, and while I still think it looks good, I'd like to do a revamp of it, because it was, when I built it, it was probably my favourite ship that I'd built, and it was for a while after that. So I want to do is start a new series. I don't know how long it's going to be. I don't even know if I'm going to publish this episode or video. But what I want to do is basically just do on camera a rebuild of this and sort of show like my thought process with how I like go through building while still showing where I'd improve stuff here. So I've sort of been doing it. I'm going to take a little tour and I'll explain sort of what it's meant to be. It's meant to be like a mainline frigate from my factions that I don't really use anymore. It's got a couple of fighter pads. It's got this really cool artillery gun that I slapped together. Fairly balanced armament. It's got plenty of firepower, lots of assault cannons, Gatlings, PDCs, that sort of thing. A ludicrous forward-facing engine bay, or forward engine. And yeah, so step inside. You can see at the time, I don't think. Yeah, this was Decorative Box 2. I'm not sure even this was in the game. If I take a look. Decorative Pack 2, shower, medical bay. I'm not sure any of that was in the game. That's how old this is. Or I just didn't really want to use it. So going in through the rear entrance, we have a pretty bad bridge, got to be honest. I say bad, it's not necessarily bad, it's just a bit small. Generally I build bridges bigger. A miscoloured light. Fall down here, you've got like the engineering bay, some miscoloured blocks there, jump drive access, hydrogen engines, 4 gyros, some batteries, that sort of thing. This was a different style of interior I had, where I used to have like everything it's effectively a single room rather than splitting off into multiple rooms. I just have a single effectively room that would have everything in it, and rather than a corridor system, which I think is better. We've got sort of living quarters. It's enough for a few people. I'd say there'd be more than 4. You'd hot bunk, have multiple people sleeping in the same bunk. It's air vent there. Here you've got an incredibly small medical bay. You've got everything you might need there, and then you get to the forward airlock. Yeah, this was before reinforced conveyors with Most Wanted. So you've got for all that. I fenced off the armory. So overall, it's not a bad ship. It's just severely outdated, and I really want to do a rebuild. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to start afresh in terms of the actual ship. I'm not going to like remove this, change bits. I'm going to just start fresh using this as a guide. Yeah, I should have it. Yeah, it's going to change the sun position. So I want to try and keep it the same length. Might increase it a bit. So I quite like the front. I think the front's quite good. I'm going to do. So one thing that's incredibly important, or not necessarily incredibly important, but one thing that's fairly important is your axis of symmetry. You generally you want the red one as your side. It's just how it is. Like, this is considered the forward one, or the X axis. This is Y. This is Z. So it'll help with orientation. That's what we can do. Build this as such. As I say, the front I'm fairly happy with as it is. I think it's a quite good looking front. But what I might do is on that one, I'm pretty sure, yeah, it goes like that. What I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to do something like that, that, that. Then we can have, back to you, probably want to be this is probably why I did it like this, which I'll leave for now actually. So, first thing that's kind of helpful is that what I'm going to do, I'm not necessarily going to use it right now, but with thrusters, is passages. Passages, I'm not sure if the corridor block actually works. It might, but I think its hitbox is weird, and that might also work, but I don't know. But how you can do something like that, I'll just remove that in a sec, and that's, it may not look it, but that's actually doesn't damage it. So you can, if you want to have indented thrusters, that's probably the best way. So we can do, I've done the actual a little bit weirdly. What you want to try and do is effectively block out the middle, which block is going to be considered fairly center line for the ship in terms of height, because you can see that this would continue on. It'll eventually expand down there, but we can worry about that in a bit. So, yeah. Next tip that you're going to see me doing here, because I kind of like that forward assault gun. In fact, I'm going to turn it into a forward artillery gun. When you build turrets, don't just stick them on. Like I'll show sort of here. You don't want to do your turrets like... I've got a couple of mods on that I'm just not going to use. I've got I've been meaning to take it off. It's the Laser Tour, got the Prototech expansion thing. Very good. So as I was saying, you don't want to do something like this, because you get a gap here, which looks really off-putting, and it looks like the ship has just sort of been cobbled together with no real thought, which on some ships you might actually want. Like if you're doing a sort of pirate ship, then that might be quite good. Don't worry about that in a sec. But on most cases, you're going to want fairly integrated turrets. So you make effectively pads for them, where they can easily expand. They can sort of look like they're integrated more directly into the hull. Right, we're going to go out one at this point. Once you've got a nice sort of front section, what I generally do is you got the front here, you got the sort of general layout of the ship. I like to do a sort of, I don't know how to do this I usually do this on the center line, but in this case I'd not, just because of how the hull is. What you want to do is sort of block out the general shape of the ship. Like, this feels a bit longer. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just effectively enough so that you can sort of start worrying about where you want to put your nacelles. So a bit more, because that one has Then push that back in. Then I'm gonna try and keep the fairly large thruster bank. I might change that bottom thruster, but I like fairly large, and we're gonna indent that a bit. There. Then in this case, I'm gonna quickly chuck on y-axis symmetry because I'm gonna do this. We're gonna hook this up behind it. Hydrogen thrusters there, and then eventually I will put like some form of I'll do something with this. Right, I'm gonna pull this back a bit because otherwise you get this really weird bit at the front. If you look from the top, it just looks a bit. Well, you can't really see. You get really. I don't know. It's just a weird bit. Right. Now I've got that. This bit's not quite sitting right with me, but we'll come back to that because we're not working on the engine bay. So, because we've got this amazing converter box thing that I've inadvertently done, we're going to start doing this. Right, another good thing that I do a lot is increase your angles. You could technically keep this going like this, and that would look fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. That looks fine. I'm getting off topic here, but I need to quickly change this. I'm gonna pull this down one because it looks a bit weird. I don't know. Yeah, that's a bit better. Okay, yeah, you want to increase like your angles. You want to put a single, like, expand it outwards. You don't have to do that. You could go, if you want, if you're going for a bit of a different style of ship, you could do that, but do something. Keeping flat angles a lot of the time is not necessarily bad, just may make your ship look a bit bland. So I do want to point out, and I probably should have pointed this out at the start of the video, these are simply my opinions. You can build your ship however you want, you can use whatever style you want. This is just how I go about it and how I sort of structure and what sort of blocks I use. Okay, right. Question is the connector. Do I want this to be a connector with a door above it like on that, or do I want to do another gun? I think a connector would make more sense. Actually, if I'm gonna do, yeah, I'll leave it now. Right. Just while let's continue on building. I want to try and get this bit looking a bit better. Change that angle to that, and then do something like that. And that's something that I've learned recently, well, not necessarily recently, but recent enough, is that using those blocks, going from an angle here to a flat edge makes it look a bit like an armor panel rather than just a flat ship. And that's something I didn't do well on this ship. If you can see that the grey bits sort of don't make sense, like why is this grey, why is this bit grey? When you do ships, if you add grey, it needs to make sense, or otherwise it's going to look a bit ridiculous. Or I say grey, not necessarily grey, but your underlying colour. That's something really important, and hopefully I'm going to get onto, and that's painting, because painting makes a lot of difference in a ship. I'm not so sure about this bit. It's not quite fit. Yeah, don't ever be afraid to delete parts of the ship, adjust parts of the ship, copy it, like cut and paste around. Just, if you think it's going to make the ship look better, try it. It's also another thing I didn't do particularly well on this ship is, I know I'm sort of blurring out a bunch of stuff, but that's just sort of how it ended up being. You can see here, this looks incredibly back heavy. You can see that there's a lot here, and then there's not much here. It looks like it would tip over. So you want to try and keep your front and your back fairly balanced, and that's what I've done wrong here. I put this when this isn't necessarily bad, but it needs to be extended out more so it looks like if I was doing that bit now, which I am, I'd do it out to here. So also having like angles here is probably good. Do something like this. Just for... No. I'm going to extend this one down nearer the front. And then I think the problem is not so much that the back is, like, the front bit of this is too heavy, it's more that the back bit isn't built up enough. Or isn't inset enough. Or something like that. As I say, while I want to try and keep the thruster pack fairly similar, I think 3 large hydrogen thrusters is a bit excessive, so I'm going to probably change just to some small ions or a large ion or something. If I did something like that, and then I have thrusters in the middle, it's not great. Does look a bit, but then also I'm gonna have this expanded to here at the very least, which helps a bit. Something else you can do to balance weight is to try and at the top or at a different side, like if the back is looking a bit heavy, try and add maybe something to the middle, and that might help. It may not fix it completely, it may help. So if I did something like that, yeah, something like that. Yeah, at the minute that looks really weird because I haven't built up this bit enough. And even that now, I'd say it's a bit too far forwards. Generally, I like having my bridges fairly near, like much closer to the back than the front. It's just a bit easier to balance. Looks better. What I can do is, leading off of the passages thing, is beam blocks. Beam blocks also don't have the thruster damage thing. You can put a hydrogen thruster here and it won't damage it. And then... yeah, that looks much better. You can see that it's far more balanced. It's still a bit back heavy, but it's fine. It doesn't need to be perfect. It's not... it just helps it look better. And in here, I am going to stick a hydrogen thruster in there. I'd say actually, with those 2 hydrogen thrusters there and the one there, these are nice, but I think it might be better to put a fixed weapon. You put 2 rockets there, passages there, and then in here, you stick in a camera. Generally, I try to avoid... I keep saying generally, I need to stop saying that. Usually, I try to avoid top-mounted cameras. Bay window, let's do that. I try to avoid top-mounted cameras because they do this really weird thing where they, like, show this... like, if I put a camera here, because of the way it's positioned, it doesn't look like this. It doesn't, like, at the front here, you have this. It looks like this. It's not great view. More like this. Not great view. But you have this entire bit here. From here, so if I position myself here, it's more like probably here. You cannot see the lower half of your screen.
It's just ship. Meaning for aiming, it's not very practical. So if you do that, you might want to do something like we put camera here, and then while it's much better, even if a bit more vulnerable, and then have inset cameras with windows in front of them. So let's actually get back to shipbuilding rather than combat. Viability. That's also another point. God, I keep thinking of random points. I'm going all over the place, and I'm sorry. I know a lot of people don't like it, but it's just how I build. Is that this ship? It's built for combat viable or viability. I don't know how you say it. Viability. It's built to be combat viable, but it's not, or more accurately, PvP viable, but not necessarily PvP optimized. So if this is PvP optimized, I'd be forgetting shape completely, do like a box with a bunch of thrusters at the bottom, and then bada bing, bada boom, you have a basically nigh unkillable ship until you run out of hydrogen. And then stick 30 railguns at the front. It's not bad to do that, and there's nothing wrong with doing that necessarily. But it's just a bit boring, and it produces not necessarily bad looking ships, but also you can get much more enjoyment and much more aesthetics from going like not necessarily worrying about combat capability, or not worrying about it, but not prioritizing it. Right. I'm gonna focus on the bridge. I was getting something up here, and I don't know. I've got a choice here because the amount of windows we've got. Before we literally just had window. This is the inverted one, but you get my point. And now we have bridge. We have different kind of bridge. We have bay. We have the window wall. We have curved windows. We have bridge windows. So it's a lot of choice. Not for those without DLC, because most of these blocks I'm using are DLC, except basically all the armor blocks and the hydrogen thrusters. The guns. Actually, none of the blocks I'm using are DLC, except the passage 2s. Right. I'm gonna try and keep this fairly close to similar, fairly close to the original design. So I'll use bridge windows, and I'll see if I can put a. Do that. There we go. This looks a bit weird. I could do it like that, and then do that, and keep it similar to the original design. God damn it. Ugh. But that just looks a bit off. Bridge windows are very hard to use, in my opinion. They're ironically not particularly good for bridges, because you need to do something like that, which, I mean, I could, I suppose. Let me try that. Put a helm here. If I shed some light. Do something like that. Maybe leave a space here for thrusters, which probably isn't a good idea, because if you actually use the bridge, you'll just get a bunch of thruster backlash. Do something using these, and then window. Yeah, no, that looks stupid. I probably could make that work, but I think I'm just gonna stick with. I'm gonna go with old classic, just the regular windows. I don't need to reinvent the wheel here. It works. It's worked for years. Since Keen actually, with those bridge windows, I should be using them because they're actually more armoured. If you look here, we'll take this. We'll take this one. 12 girders, 25 bulletproof glass, 10 bulletproof glass. 25 bulletproof glass total, 5 steel plates, 10 interior plates. I think this one would be slightly more armoured. Oh, headphones turn off for a sec. So yeah, okay. I mean, it looks fine. That's what I want to do. I don't want to have this too indented because that just look a bit off. As I said before, I do appreciate that I'm jumping around a lot. It's just I'm trying not to as best I can, but it's very hard. It's just how I build. I'd like do a little bit of one section and then think, oh, I've got an idea for that, and oh, I've got an idea for that, and it's just a bit. It's just how I do it. No, I don't think that would look well. So I'll keep that, but I'm gonna ditch that bit. Question is, what if I did something like this? And here, do a bit of curved, and then did that out, and then here, like that. So I've just disconnected that. Yeah, I'm probably not going to put a full action glass in here. What I'll do something like that, and then, oh yeah, what I'll have a go up for one block, and then I'll put a Gatling gun back here. I think I'm just gonna stick with the regular Gatling gun. I know there's the Type 2 now, but I just prefer the original. I do think the Warfare Iron Thrusters are the best looking of the three. I prefer the original, the Gatling gun, over the newer ones. Well, the newer one just looks a bit more Space Engineers-y. And you know what? I'll use the argument this is meant to be a rebuilding of an old ship. Let's try and keep using old blocks, except for the fact that I'm not going to. I'm going to be using whatever blocks look nicest. No, we're going to pop the hydrogen engines back. Keep that massive thruster bank. I can't do that, unfortunately. Do something like this. This is a thruster bank style I love to do a lot, and that's the I did a bit weird there, but is to basically do like boom, boom, and it makes, and if you put that as a thruster bank, it makes it look really cool. I feel like it should be flipped. That's the thing. Yeah. looks a bit naff. I think it's because of the angles. I can remove one of them. So you don't want to be mixing in terms of having like that, because it just get really weird. I think it's this. I'm just gonna do. I'll leave that one. No. Do something like that. It's not. I think this is causing issues. Then I'll do that. And do that. Okay, alright. Okay, that works. So let's just compare it to the original. The front, that bit's a bit different, but basically identical from the front. Or at least as close as you're going to get from a completely new rebuild of a ship. The side is also fairly similar in shape. You got a bit more going, like, incline, but most of it from the top, again a bit different because there, but most of it's the same. You could tell that these are based off the same ship, so I don't want to do like a completely different ship, so I'm trying to avoid, because it is meant to be a rebuild, not just a random build session. What I'm going to do, I'm going to keep the rear landing pad. I'm going to use a new insert connector because I really do actually like it. I didn't think I was going to use it too often, but I am. It's really handy. And just here, I'll put something like this. I'll go on a single incline to match up with that. Maybe not. Do that. Get me. No, I think this needs to be separate. It needs to be distinctly different. Yeah, that's a little better. I think this could be a fantastic place for another really useful thing. An antenna array. It's a really good way of detailing your ships. You stick a few interior pillars and truss pillars, or if you're playing fully non-DLC, wheels and interior walls, interior pillars, and you've got yourself a fairly good looking antenna. I have to do something about this. Right. On this ship, you can see here, you can see I put hydrogen tanks in this gap. That's something I think I'm going to do with this ship. I'm going to do it slightly differently. I'm going to have it directly lead from there to a hydrogen tank. And then I'll have it expand here. And then I quite favour doing something like this. Have it connect it up directly to there, and then it would probably make most sense to put a Gatling gun here, because you want to try and keep your weapon arcs focused for what the weapon's meant to do. For an artillery gun, it doesn't need 360-degree firing. It's meant to be like a capital weapon. It can afford to be have a smaller arc, whereas Gatlings, you want the maximum possible arc possible, because it's an anti-fighter weapon and a maybe light anti-ship weapon, but like, you're not going to be fighting a massive battleship in this. And that's another thing you want to keep in mind when building a ship, its purpose. Like, a dinky little corvette that's like 10 blocks long doesn't need to take on a battleship. same way, a massive 100-block long battleship isn't going to need to worry itself about the tiny little PT boats. You want to focus what a ship is meant to do and build around that. The idea of the Fortitude was that it was sort of like a mainline frigate, so in this case I can get away with most of whatever I want to do because it's a mainline ship. It's meant to be extremely versatile, fit into any formation. That's why it has the massive artillery gun rather than smaller dual-barreled. It's meant to be able to support in long-range engagements while also providing mid-range fire, and then, if needs be, getting close to the action and support larger ships. Right. I'm gonna do something here. I think I'm gonna try and use the new bay window, not bay, bridge windows. Might try something like... No, I need it flawless. If I did something like that, I tried that on like an exploration frigate I started building, and I think it was Signal came out. Yeah, I can roll with that. I can do something like that. It's not perfect, sure, but it doesn't need to be. Then I'll leave that as bit of a separate part. Then no, doesn't quite work. As I say, don't be afraid to try out and then delete stuff if you need to, if you don't think it works. What I need to do here is add a bit of height depth, or a bit of depth, because I would do this here, but I don't know how I don't know if I can do that without having it look a bit weird. Something like this, I guess. And then, ooh, actually, maybe I do that. Move this bit of it. Turn this into that. I used to never use that block. Actually, okay. I said I used to never use that block. I did, but I didn't use it as much as I do now, or in the ways that I do now. You can make some really cool depth using them. So, and also, I've been starting to open up myself to some of these blocks. Some of them look a bit janky, and I always think there's slightly better connections. But I've started to open myself up to using them, and they're actually pretty good. Right. Okay, how's that look? Bit better. Need a bit... I'm going to change this into a bit of a more gradual incline, rather than just a hard stop. Yes, okay. What I do want to do here... Oh, headphone went away. My mic is probably broken multiple times during this recording. I would not be surprised. I'm gonna need to change this up a bit, because I've got an idea. Something like that. Do that. Still doesn't work. Okay. Well, we'll do it slightly differently then. What we'll do is we'll do something like that. Well, maybe actually some bean blocks. From the top it looks fine, from the side it looks fine. I might add a bit of a angle here. I don't want to be doing this for too long. I'm not going to be sitting here for hours and hours. So I'll probably upload part 2 to this at some point. I should probably actually, if I am going to do that in this video at some point, but I'm having too much fun. I'll do. Yeah, I can fit hydrogen thrusters there. Hydrogen thrusters here. And oh, okay, that's a bit of a knot. I don't like having exposed conveyors like this. I don't really see any other way. So I push this out one, which is possible actually. But it should be a bit exposed. Back to that and then push this back one. Because I'm planning to put assault cannons here. Have a bit of, I mean I could do 2 if I remove them and have a bit of like a broadside. Which is kind of fun. I'm either going to do assault or artillery here. I think I'm probably going to do artillery. No, assault. Blend a bit better. This is the compromises with making a ship. Well, I could use some armor panels. Makes the ship look a bit better and also provides some slight protection for the guns. I don't know. I think I'm just gonna ignore that part of the ship for now. Come back to it later. It's looking at me a bit funny. So one problem with trying to rebuild a ship, it's quite difficult because on the one hand, you want to try and keep it fairly similar if you're trying to do a complete rebuild, but on the other hand, there's also parts you're not gonna like and you're gonna want to do different. But so then you have the thing: do you change it? Do you keep it? Do you compromise? What do you do? I think what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna move that because I think the top is going to be a bit difficult, but you gotta remember, Space Engineers is a 3D game. You don't have to do it on the top axis. You can do bottom axis. I say bottom axis. It's just the y-axis in general. So what I'm gonna do, I am gonna do my broadside idea. I'm gonna have 2 artillery not artillery. 2 assault cannons on each side, so that this ship can then go in and do like broadsides. Well, another thing I might try out here because I'm quite a fan of. Maybe if I push this back a bit, maybe. So I can just. I know I said I was going to end the video, and I got distracted. How it gets with Space Engineers. You try and end a video and then you just get distracted with something else. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that. I think that's fine. So what I could do actually is curve this off a bit. Have something like that. And then yeah. I think this needs to be a bit different. This needs to be like that. This can be extended via this, and then using this. Something the same can be done here. And arguably, in my opinion, the most important thrust of axis isn't actually forward, it's up. Up is the axis you're probably going to be using the most, because if you want stuff to go into planets or even just moon orbit, you need it. Any form of gravity, it's the easiest thrust to dodge with. If you're trying to do a PvP optimized ship, you do a ton of upwards thrust rather than any other direction. This needs a bit more. It's stopping me from doing something like that. Okay. Yeah, I'm liking this rebuild, I've got to be honest. But I do have to stop eventually, otherwise I'm going to get carried away. I'm going to try and indent this a bit. Take it to here, and then that makes sense a bit why that's there. And do something like that. A bit staggering. And then, yeah. Okay, well, I think I'm going to end the video there. I will... I hate that I just keep getting distracted. I'm going to end the video there, actually, this time. And I will eventually come back to this. Probably next week at some point. Where I'm not going to go over how to get a fully finished ship, because a lot of the finishing touches are like making groups, adding tiny bits of paint here and there, that sort of thing, where I don't think that's very YouTube fun, or at least I'm not going to usually include that. I might include it this time purely because it's the first episode, but I think for now I'm going to leave. I'm going to not do that. I don't know, this ship's looking at me funny. Well, I've got to stop at some point. Yeah. If you guys enjoyed this, I don't usually say this, if you guys enjoyed this, please let me know, because I've got many different ships in here. If I just try and load it out. I've got, if we go through HSY, that's the faction that's from. I've got a lot of random server stuff, but I've got a lot of ships in here that I could do videos on. And if we go UMA is probably more where I'd focus on. I've got a few newer ships, but stuff like the Blades, the Destiny, which I've probably gone past already, Dagger, Watcher, and Zephyr. That's all line of stuff. That sort of thing. I have a lot of different ships that I could redo and do videos on. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. But so I need to get my proper intro. Stay safe out there, engineers, and happy hunting.